Hey there, it's me Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the description. There was a silence for a time, then Lawrence broke it. Have I upset you or something, Steve? I felt suddenly guilty. It was hardly Lawrence's fault that he had somehow decided to go along with the flow of all of this. It was even worse for him. He was new to the area and the school, and his mother was a willing and enthusiastic sponsor of his journey into girlhood. I could sort of see why he appeared happier about it than I felt. No, I replied eventually. I'm sorry, my mind was on other things, I suppose. Anything you want to talk about? He asked me sweetly. I looked at him on the sofa, with his long blonde hair, eager blue eyes, and sweet pink dress. It was hard to see any malice in him, or to bear any towards him. Eventually I smiled. I suppose I'm just not used to all this girl stuff, I said, by way of explanation. It just seems a bit funny for you to tell me my hair looks beautiful, you know, just a bit odd. I know, he exclaimed. It is funny, isn't it? It's not the sort of thing I'd normally do. I'm sorry. He did look genuinely aggrieved about it. I thought about my inadvertent exclamation to Nikki about my hair earlier. It was easily done. It's all right, I said, no need to apologize. He smiled eagerly at me. Thanks, and it does look nice, really. I smiled back. So does yours. Listen, I don't want to be rude, but why are you suddenly so happy about dressing as a girl? You hated it on Sunday. I know, he gasped. It's peculiar, isn't it? I suppose it's Maxine that's made me change my mind a bit. She kissed me again when she got back from work, you know, in front of Tanya as well. I raised my eyebrows by way of response. I think she likes me, he went on, especially dressed like this. She more or less said so last night. His enthusiasm was unmistakable. I felt a little uneasy for him. It was quite possible that Maxine was simply playing him along for some reason. It seemed unnecessary to break his little dream, however. That's good, I said, and that made him smile all the more. We spoke about it a bit, he continued. She said that some people are just pretty, and some people are strong. It's a bit like being a girl or a boy, but sometimes girls want to be strong, and boys want to be pretty. That's interesting, I said, non-committedly. Personally, I don't think it's so much what you want as what you are. She's treating me like I'm really pretty, and I've never been so happy in my life. He stared at me for some sort of confirmation, and then added as an afterthought, and I think I make her feel strong. I was saved from the necessity of making a response by the return of Nikki, wearing a fairly plain pale lilac dress. I smiled at her and told her she looked nice, which only produced a scowl. Next to come down was Tanya, in a nice black trouser suit with a halter neck and a jacket. I felt a pang of jealousy that she had somehow managed to get away with trousers while I was sitting there in a peach-colored dress. Last to arrive was Maxine, who had somehow managed to get hold of a jet-black tuxedo, complete with dress shirt and bow tie. She seemed extremely pleased with herself, and Lawrence was almost over the moon with delight at her choice. It irritated me a bit. It seemed that she was determined to emphasize the femininity of the clothes Lawrence and I had been landed with, rather than to be strong as Lawrence no doubt interpreted it. Before long we were off to the theater in 2 cars. We parked, and took our seats in the little cafe for a pre-show bite to eat. Nikki advised me mockingly to choose something feminine. That made me determined to go for something excessively butch, like a rare steak. Unfortunately, it wasn't that sort of cafe. The butchest thing on the menu was quiche, and in the end I opted for that. Lawrence had some sort of salad sandwich, and we all ate our choices. I decided I needed to go to the ladies before the performance began, and made my excuses and left. The toilets were up a flight of stairs, and it took some effort to climb these in my long dress and unaccustomed shoes. I managed it, however, and walked through the door, confident that I would not be recognized as a boy. I found an empty cubicle and did what I had to do. I came out to rinse my hands and looked at myself in the mirror. I still looked sophisticated, classy even. I turned my head from side to side to make sure, and saw the long earrings bounce across my neck. "Hello, Sarah." The voice interrupted my thoughts, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. Turning around, I saw first a multicolored kaftan and looking upwards, saw the last face I would have wanted to see. It was Sylvia. "I thought you told me you weren't interested in the theater," she drawled, smiling gently at me. "I'm not," I stammered, "that is, not particularly." "Well, it should be a good show tonight," she went on. "1 or 2 of my friends are in it, you know." She looked me up and down appraisingly. "And is this the dress you decided to have instead of the one from my shop?" "Yes," I hissed, looking for a way to leave. Fortunately for me, there were 2 or 3 other women in the toilet as well, so I was free from any fear of another assault. "Well, I'm not sure it suits you as much," she went on, after some consideration. "You're such a lovely-looking girl, pink suits you more than peach." I blushed from my head to my toes. "I'd better go and rejoin my friends," I said, trying to get past her. She did not move, and her hand moved onto my shoulder. She began fiddling a bit, fixing me with her gaze. "Your straps were showing a little, dear," she beamed. "There, that's better." "Thanks," I piped, and managed to shuffle around her and head for the door. "See you soon, at the interval perhaps," she shouted as I rushed. I got out of the toilet, and had to lean against the wall for a moment. Of all the people to meet here, she was the one who would have disconcerted me the most. I managed to compose myself fairly quickly, not least because I knew that if I lingered, Sylvia would herself come out of the door and see me again. I scampered a little quicker than was ladylike back down the stairs to the restaurant. "You took your time," Nikki told me, as I returned. "The curtain goes up in 10 minutes. "Well, you know what girls are like," Maxine put in, smiling widely as I blushed. Lawrence beamed at the supposed wit of her comment. The show itself was of little interest to me. I sat between Nikki and Tanya, fairly uncomfortable in my long dress. Everyone was bewildered at the interval when I refused to go down to the bar, saying I preferred to sit where I was. There was no way I was going to risk bumping into Sylvia again, even in the safety of such a large number. The second half of the show was no more inspiring than the first. I found myself nearly drifting off to sleep more than once as the heat of the theater got to me. At last it was over, and as the applause drifted away, and the lights came up, I noticed from the corner of my eye Lawrence delicately disentangling himself from Maxine, and trying frantically to put his hair back into place. It appeared as if nothing else, him being kissed by Maxine, was no fantasy. We drove back to Nikki's house, and I immediately began pressing for help to get back to being Steve. There seemed total indifference from all parties to this request. Lawrence, it appeared, was quite happy to go home as Lucy, and my desire to become a boy for my journey home was nothing but an irritation. Irritated myself, I went upstairs, and managed to struggle out of the dress and underwear, and put my school uniform back on again. I removed my wig, but still was fully made up, and my nails were varnished. I returned downstairs to see what help I could get. Nikki, Tanya, and the 2 older women were chatting away in the living room. Maxine and Lawrence, it appeared, had gone upstairs to look at more of her artwork. "Oh, Sarah, you look horrible," Nikki said by way of greeting. I still couldn't interest anyone in removing my makeup or nail varnish, and the time for the drive home was nearing fast. Eventually, I went to the bathroom and managed, with soap and water, to remove most of the makeup. I dabbed my face dry and returned to the living room. Mrs. Luce was standing, holding her car keys. She had volunteered to drive me home and was now waiting for Lawrence to be extricated from Maxine's bedroom. "What about these?" I blurted, waving my polished nails at Nikki. She simply shrugged. "They look good to me." "You said you had some varnish remover," I reminded her. Sighing martyrishly, she went upstairs and came down with a box of wipes, which I snatched off her quickly and began rubbing at my nails. I had hardly begun when a sheepish-looking Lawrence appeared, and we were rushed off to their car. I continued the process as we drove along. "Did you two enjoy yourselves tonight?" Mrs. Luce asked from the front seat. "Oh yes," Lawrence replied enthusiastically. "It was really good." "And do you both feel more at home in your dresses now?" That was the point of it all, after all. "Yes, Mum," Lawrence responded brightly. "I like it, it's nice." "Good. And what about you, Sarah?" "The name Steve," I mumbled darkly, still trying to see if I had removed all traces of the nail varnish in the dark. "Well, whatever, do you like your dress now?" "I wouldn't say that," I replied. "I don't think I'll ever like wearing a dress, but I suppose it was useful to get used to how it feels." I conceded. "Good," she said brightly. "This contest thing has been really useful in getting Lawrence and I accepted in town," she prattled on. Lawrence looked sideways at me and raised his eyes to the heavens. "And the Simmons are such nice people. It's difficult, moving to a new town when you're a widow." Not long afterwards we arrived at my house. I thanked Mrs. Luce for the lift and walked through the door. I was late, but I had forewarned my parents that I would be, and to my relief, I discovered that they had already gone to bed. Locking the doors, I did so too, and went to sleep quite quickly. My dreams were disturbed only by the lurking figure of Sylvia, who followed me through a range of adventures that night. Please subscribe my channel for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.